What's up, guys? Welcome again to another episode of How Creatives Think. We are super excited that you are with us today. My name is Landon Hook,
I'm Chris Henderson.
and we have a really awesome guest that we're really pumped about today.
Yeah, we got Khari Mateen. He's become a good friend of ours. He's a producer, multi-instrumentalist. He's a composer. He's worked with like a ton of Grammy artists. Worked in just about every network you can imagine for TV shows and so forth. He is just a very accomplished human being. And we've actually worked with him before too. So
Yeah, our track "Boss Man," if you've heard it, is all Khari, and it's pretty awesome. We love this guy.
yeah, we enjoy the conversation, so we hope that you do too. Hey everybody, we're back here with Khari Mateen. He's become a good friend of Landon and I, and we are super excited to be talking with you today. And the question that we are generally starting everything off with is going to be, tell us about Khari Mateen. Tell us about the journey that this creative person has been on, where this road has taken you, and just help us get to know you better.
Yeah. I will say, it all started like with my family. They're both musicians. My grandmother, my grandfather played on both sides, all musicians, and just music around the house all the time. I think that's where it really started. And then from there, you go to school, you do your, music theory, you go to high school. I played in the orchestra. I picked cello in middle school or elementary school, and then played all throughout to high school. And then my father was living in Philadelphia. And so from there, he was playing at different like clubs around Philadelphia during the neo soul era of like Philly musicians, Jill Scott, the Eric Badu's, the Roots, all of those artists, Music Soul Child, Jill Scott. These are people that during my summer times I would go up and hang out with my dad. These are the people I was around watching make music on stage when I was like maybe 15, 16. And so I was really sparked by what they were doing. And then sometimes I was invited to studios and I was like, whoa, this is how they really make the music. It's like, all right, cool. I mean, not like both sides is one thing, but you see a live show and you see what they do in the studio, almost two similar things, but one is a little bit different. And I really took a liking to what happened inside the studio. So when I graduated from high school, my mom took me to Full Sail, and I looked at the school and I was like, right at the sign your life away portion of the tour, I went, and then I called up my buddy Kilo Saunders, and he at the time he was producing records for the Roots and other artists, and he was around like people like Scott Storch and Mel Chaos Lewis, Anthony Tidd, James Poyser, like all these people I was already seeing in Philadelphia, and I was like, yo, you think I should go to the school down here? It's like, man, nah, man, get your ass up here and tough it out and figure out, what you want to do, how you want to do it, and how you want your music to sound. And so after that, I moved up to Philly immediately. Questlove's mom got me a job at the Ritz Theater there. And then that's when I started seeing movies that I've never seen before. I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. The music is different. This is not like an action film. This is not Tom Cruise, boom, you know what I'm saying? This is like different music. So I was working at a theater, and then I was also working to get records on the Roots album. So that was like really my goal because I was super broke. I wasn't in school. I was living in Philadelphia, one of the, from Georgia, a very cold place. You know what I'm saying? I remember living in an apartment with no heat, no heat, no great insulation. It was just crazy. It was like a place that my dad had, and he was like, yo, you should stay here, that type of thing. Did some records with them. My first placements were on Game Theory for the Roots. And I remember getting fired from the Ritz that day, the same day Sean G cut me a check. the biggest check I ever had because I was going to be on the next Roots album. And I was like, this is the worst, best day ever. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is freaking crazy. And that led me to working with them over like the course of 3 or 4 albums, and then making my own music. And I'm just gonna fast forward through a little bit of this stuff to now. But that was the beginning. That was the start. The first chance I got to work on a film was with director Mark Webber and his producer Seth Shear. At the time, they needed music for this film they were doing called Explicit Ills. This was my first film, shot in Philly. Seth put in some of my music to the editor, Jay Lieberwitz. He did the edit for that. Placed my music. I had to do more music. They liked it. It became the film that then was seen at South by Southwest by a director in New York that he really changed my life. Like, because I started doing films with Sundance and all that stuff, and it just was great. And from there, I kept working on the film on the side. Then I had to move from Philly to expand. I moved to I got a gig in LA, musical directing, pop singer named Cody Simpson. And then that's when I moved to LA. You never really move to LA without a gig. You do not want to do that. And so that was a big thing for me to make sure that I had something. So I was on the road managing the musicians and, MD and those gigs while still doing like commercials for Sprite, doing like, all this stuff, working with this guy, Jenner First. We've been working for like 15 years. Like we've done so many films over that time. And then, that whole lifestyle was already all the way up until the pandemic, man, pretty much, working in films and working with artists, going in different studios in LA. You already know how it is. It's like, just do as much as you can to survive, essentially. And so pandemic hits, my grandmother tells me like, yo, there's a place down in Brenham. I'm about to move. This is our family house. Do you want to move to the middle of nowhere, Brenham, Texas, to continue living your life as a musician? I was like, well, it doesn't seem like anything is happening here. So, and that was interesting too, because the world was sitting down watching television, essentially.
Right.
And that was the next biggest like move that happened in the industry for me, I guess. And I did a lot of films during this 4 years, essentially to where we are today. And that's kind of like the journey in a very short way, So
Wow. That's really cool. Okay, so if you were to sum up, maybe not sum up's not the right word. If you were to just give a brief descriptor for each of those major phases, like how it grew you as a creative artist, what would that be?
Working with the Roots was high pressure, high quality, excellence only, very aggressive energy. This is the Roots. These are all musicians. I am 17 years old, trying to be able to be around people like that, making music that have already done like a lifetime of work before me. That was crazy to have like quests like, oh yeah, you use the studio. Yeah, we'll see what you make. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of energy, have Black Thought come in and listen to your music like, all right, yeah, whatever. It's like, then you're like, fuck, all right, well, it creates so that first phase is pressure. And I guess that is where it is. I mean, I lived in China for 2 years. That was like broadening. Seth, that guy I was telling you about, he started they started a film company there, buying and making films. So I moved to China for a bit, working with those guys, and that was like, oh wow, this is the industry. This is crazy. Like they doing this here, kid born in Bakersfield, California, live in Georgia, moved to Philly in China. That's what that was the broadening. Then coming back. I stopped working with the Roots to be like, all right, let me do my music, let me do my thing. So during that time, I was doing my own records. That's how we kind of got into. So that was a growth in it. So my own self expression, figuring out what that would sound like. That was that phase. Then it was all right. You're doing your own self expression. Now I had the opportunity through Andrew Watt to be in a very pop, place, working with, under the likes of like Scooter Braun and all of that whole community of LA people were very powerful, lots of money, high expectation, not unfamiliar, but in a different style of music to where I had to try to fit in, working with the Cisco Atlas, working with the, playing on Post Malone's record, doing like that type of stuff, being around Lou Bell, being around Mike Stud or Mike now. That was like, all right, that was the glam era. You know what I'm saying? I was like, all right, let's have some fun. You know what I'm saying? Being around the models, being around the, the parties and all that stuff. And, picking up some bad habits and, but still very prolific at the same time. Also would call that the expensive era. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And the wait in traffic era.
Yeah, the wait in traffic era.
Right.
The fake ass people era, you know what I'm saying? But like still a lot of good people too, that wanted to get business done. I met a lot of people, still have a lot of friends from LA and still go there to this day. And then I think right now this is the phase of this right now where I'm at it's just to bring it all together. And like I have the studio built here now. I think I was telling you that when I went to your spot that I was looking to build a studio and I was, buying some of your equipment. And, I've slowly, this is 4 years, slowly gotten a space to where I'm having artists come in, they're using it, I'm working on films, like doing my thing. And then now and so saving up again to be able to have like a home with a property, with a studio, with a driveway, so someone can come in with some land to like, I'm about to be 40, and then look at the rest of my life in the sense of, where do I want to be in the mind state, the time, the rest of the types of travel, what I want to take, the people that I want to be around, the people I want to be able to invite, and have them be comfortable here. That's what this phase is now.
That's really cool.
There's a really interesting thread throughout that entire story of while you may have been like in a stage where you were developing who you were, what your sound was, and to the stage of I'm really able to express that now. There's a common thread of you and your creativity in the midst of what may have been at times chaos around you. Was it difficult to maintain that sense of like my own creativity, my own sense of self, while still having to produce and work for other people that may have pulled you in a direction that may have been outside your comfort zone creatively?
I think there have definitely been opportunity situations where I was outside my comfort zone, but a lot of people that work with me, they know what I am, and they know what I want to do, and
Right.
you're not talking to me if you're expecting something different.
Right.
Really, like I really like. I don't think there's not a lot of times, and if it is, I will tell them like, I'm this, right?
You know who I am, right? Right. Let me clarify the situation a little bit here.
Yeah, and that's not a disrespectful way. That's just like, yo, check this out. Like, this is what I expect. This is what you expect. If that doesn't match, let's not waste each other's time.
So when did that develop? Because that's for a lot of people, that's a later development where they finally become comfortable with them. They stop trying to be everyone to everyone else because they finally just became comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of times that's a later development. When did that develop for you? Or was it something that's always been present, even way back in the Roots days?
Yeah, I think that's where it really started. Like when I first started producing, I was like, I loved Pharrell, right? And then like Richard Nichols of the Roots at the time, he's passed away. But he was like, yo, this sounds like some fucking Pharrell shit, bro. Like, yeah, it's dope, but that ain't you. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, like, yeah. And I met Pharrell one time and I was like, this was like years ago, and like Quest like introduced me, and I was like, and I listened to what they were doing. I was like, dang, I really saw that he was like, he was making what he liked.
Mm.
And so a lot of times, even when somebody like sends me like a brief or a like, oh, I want it to sound like this, I'm like, cool. All right, now here's my version of that. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
really, it's just about finding what that person is emotionally experiencing with the music that they're hearing. It's not like, oh, it has to be that sound or that drum or that kick or that. To me, it's like it's an emotion that you feel from listening to that type of song or that music
Mm.
or that pace. So just identifying those things are the only thing I really try to consider when I'm like creating something for someone who's like, I want it to sound like this. You really what you're saying, you want it to feel like this
You
to
know,
me. And that
that
might be just my own like
do you know
ego.
how rare that do you know how rare that is for a producer, by the way?
Yeah,
Yes.
Usually
I think it's a very valuable thing for someone to make something sound exactly like something else. Cool, do that shit. Go for it. Like I am not here
yeah.
to stop you. That is not
Well
my bag.
well, think about it. At that point, you're not just like if you're gonna be a producer trying to make someone into the best version of them musically to express to the world, A, that's a huge risk because it's an unknown quantity at that point. Because what happens if the world doesn't really appreciate that person?
Dude.
But B,
Yeah.
you're actually improving another human being because you're helping them find their own voice.
For sure.
Mm.
That's I think that's what like what it would used to be. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
It's like the Roots did it for me. They were like, yo, stop that. And then it made me
Mm.
feel better about
Mm.
what I'm doing because I'm like, oh, I didn't have to think about like, oh, what would Pharrell do? What would this person do? What would
Mm.
that person do? And then it was like, all right, now is it lonely? Of course. Not knowing exactly what you want to do or how you want to sound. And when you get there, it's like, cool. So I think a lot of producers find comfort in doing something else because, or copying someone because they can get there faster, which is,
Mm.
I don't know, wherever that is, that's cool. As long as you sleep well at night, man, go do that shit. I really don't know. You know what I'm saying?
But it's
I
not
know.
creativity. That's the
Well, it's
key.
not me.
Yeah.
It's not me, and that's not what I'm gonna do. I don't want to say to someone that that's not creative. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't want to just jump off on a limb and say that, but I would definitely say that I feel a lot of comfort in doing something that makes me feel good, even if it's not exactly the sound or what somebody else thinks, especially if they don't know how to make music.
Mm.
Like having like some person tell like if you're not even not even a musician telling me like, yo, this is not, like creative or this is not like me or you or like what? Dude, I just spent 18 hours like in the studio by myself creating. You know what I'm saying? Like in my opinion, creating.
It
So
doesn't
if
get
that
much more you than that.
yeah, exactly. It's all
Mm.
me, like really, you know what I'm saying? And then like honestly, I love to collaborate too, with people who are like-minded in that way, and they bring something to it. I try to just, especially people doing what they do, like do what you do, man. You know what I'm saying? Music generally doesn't hurt anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Generally.
Right. Right. I really like what you said about how it's not necessarily a particular sound or a particular instrument or a particular voice. It's the feeling that you get when you experience that sound, experience that voice. And I would imagine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'd imagine that when you slowly started to, maybe it wasn't slowly, but when you transitioned into film and scoring films and film for television, series and that kind of stuff, that's a really important thing to be able to have when a director comes to you and says, I don't really even maybe know what the instrumentation needs to be, but I want it to feel like this. This is the emotion I want out of this scene.
Mhm.
Is that a freeing thing for you when you have kind of an open slate with just an emotion to explore?
Yeah. I mean, working with directors it's an interesting thing, because they're doing a lot. They're from there like start to finish, they're part of the whole thing. And I try to make it easier for the director having me be like the character that they want it to be for the film. Like I definitely in that scenario, I'm definitely 100% my mind playing a role as like, okay, this is the other character that they didn't have on set. And sometimes it's really good to have. Sometimes they're asking me, yo, can you make something so we can play it on set? that's better, you know? So like
Mhm.
we're all emotionally attached to the pieces at the start. I think the for me, that's the most important thing working with directors. I think that's why I've worked with so many different ones because I think, I think some composers they make you know, the career off of one type of thing, one type of director. They have a long line of films with that director, and I guess I do too. With certain directors, I think we work well together. But I still try to make as much room for guidance from the director as possible. Like,
Mhm.
get me in early, and you will get what you want. Now, if you call me like, "Yo, I need this film done in a month," all right, bro.
Yeah,
Like, can we be realistic here? You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So those are, that's just how I feel about that. Yeah.
Do you find yourself scoring, speaking of the directing film thing, do you find yourself scoring parts of the film that have already been completed more, or do you find yourself being tasked with writing something that expresses kind of the idea they're going for, and then they kind of do the cut for that?
Yeah, it's both. It just depends on where the state of the film is. Some people are still like in the financing phase, right? And they're just like, all
Right.
right, dude, I got these like 10 scenes. Like, can you please like just do your thing? Do your thing on this. Sometimes I get a script. Sometimes I get, I love the challenge of everything, all things. Like even if it is a month out, I'm like, well, that's a challenge, and yes, I'm getting paid. And yeah, like let me see if I can do this. Like that's kind of I thrive off of that. Like it's the same type of energy that I had when I was working with the Roots years and years ago. Like they had a deadline from Def Jam for the record. We had to make records. They had a high bar, do as much as you can. It's coming out. Like and I love the idea of it's coming out. It's
Mm.
like I need that too. Like we gotta be working towards something. And so for me, that has to be fulfilled. I'm not really like a artist that just sits around like, oh, I gotta do this over again and work this, bro.
So, so if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like what you're saying is you prefer to work in environments or time constraints or any kind of constraints that
Yeah,
forces you to not get in your own head, but to be more stream of thought. In other
yeah,
words, a lot of times people struggle with creativity because they're not able to get out of their own way. They're in their own head. They're scared about it, well, maybe a subconscious fear of what if I put this out there and then people reject it? And so they try and
mm,
craft it into something safe. And you're saying, maybe you have a propensity to do that if you have all the time in the world. But when you're under constraints of like, oh no, we got to get it done, it's like, well,
yeah,
stream of thought. Don't even have a second question
yeah.
about.
That's tight. I love that. I'm
Okay, so
like,
I'll take
yo,
that as yes,
everybody
you
shut the
agree.
fuck up. And they're like, it's not just me. It's like everybody should be doing that. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Everybody. I mean, like, there is at a certain level of like the people that you're around, all these motherfuckers are good, bro. Like, what are we
mhm,
waiting? Like, what are y'all talking
mhm.
about? Like, you've been doing this for 15 years, you've been doing it for 7, you've been doing it for 2, but you're really fucking good. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you, why are we stressing about this? It's like, all right, cool. Maybe have like I learned this from Rich back in the day. He would play it for people. All right, play it for people, see what they think. All right, like different people. All right, cool. There's your little control group or whatever you want to call it. Get your information from that. uh, you know, yes, think everything out, but you still in this day and age, even more so than back then, you got to put something out.
Mm.
You got to put it out to the world for you to cultivate what the next thing is, because like I do not claim to know what the masses love. I just want to do what I like to do, and that gets developed from what I see them respond to. I think it's a back and forth handshake between the people that we supply this to and we learn from, and that's just ever growing to me. And that changes. That could change in a year, 2 years. I've worked in hip hop, I've worked in pop, I worked in film, I like working, I like creating, I love cameras, I love building things. I love soldering things. You know, I remember I talked to you about like, dude, I like achieving things. I probably have like a death complex, like, oh shit, I'm gonna get hit by a bus one day. I'm like, fuck, I did not finish that shit, bro. Like, what? That sucks. That sucked. I'm dead. I didn't finish it. That sucks. All right. I don't know. I mean, I take things a little lightly because, man, it's bro, it's not that serious. It really ain't. You know, it really isn't. You know, if you love something, you're already putting so much effort into it. So it's like, gee, like how much more do you have to give for someone to be able to like, oh yeah, I can appreciate that. You know, I had a friend, he hit me up recently. He was like, he's like, I want to come down and check out the studio to see if it's my vibe. I'm like, yeah, come down. Come. If it's not, dude, totally fine. You know, but figure it out. Figure it out.
So Khari's philosophy on all things is just shut up and do it.
Yeah, kind of. It really is. Like, I mean, I built this whole studio, you know, like, and then I'm like, yeah, it's super expensive. Like, yeah, all right, cool. I won't do that again. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather buy. You know? But if you never have done it, you're not like you have no fucking clue. You don't understand shit until you do it. Until you like fall on your face or, you know, I'm gonna, you know, I like, yeah, this is super expensive. I need to figure out another way to be able to do this. In the way that I'm doing it at this level now, whether it's this studio or that studio or buying this whole building or figuring that out. Figure it out. Figure it out, man. Yeah.
If we don't mind, could we indulge Chris for just a moment? I think Boss Man, the song that we kind of worked together on, that you wrote and that we came in and we kind of recorded it together and everything. I still think of that as one of the most creative songs that I have ever heard. Like, bar none. I mean, it is just off the chart. I want to get into your head just for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How in the world did you piece together what you did? Because it's kind of a merging of multiple styles, and then you pulled out the cello, and I'm like, what is even happening here? Like the guitar, the cello, in this hip hop feel with this LA story. Like,
I still get comments on that track to this day. People hear that track like, what is this? This is so awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember when we first kind of heard the kind of sketch that you were doing on it, I was like, what is happening?
I actually think you were walking out the door after like picking up a piece of gear, and you're like, "Hey, let me play you this song." And Henny and I were like, "No, you can't leave now. Like, you can't leave."
Dang, is that how it went? Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then we listened to it, and you're like, "Did you have to come back in like a week? And we have to record this song."
And I was going out of town.
Yeah.
It was like going to Italy or something like that.
They're like, no, you got to cancel your flight, dude.
This song takes priority.
I think that song really, it was out of like the inspiration of that's what I was saying. Like, remember I was telling you about LA being there is like the kind of like the dark times of, you know, being around, picking up some bad habits, being around some bad people. That song really came from that, just observation. And then it was like I was being dropped off. I'll tell you an inside story. I was being dropped off in the Uber, and it was kind of clear to me that the Uber driver that it was dropping me off from this after hours I was in was a Fed or a cop or something like that.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? I was like, you know what, bro? Like, this is like the most gangsterish shit I've ever been a part of, and I never went back again. But I was like, let me create a song that was an ode to that experience. You know what I'm saying? Put your cups in the air for the boss man. Because I don't know if we're going to ever see that motherfucker again.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe his last evening here.
Like, all right, let's go. You know what I'm saying? We're out of here. You know, the production style too was, you know, I wanted something slow and drippy and, you know, and big too, to show the weight of a person like that, of the people that I was around, of the class that you still saw in a place where most people wouldn't see it in. You know what I'm saying? So if for me, using the cello, using the guitar almost like in a flamenco style or a classical guitar style, that was just these are all just approaches to try to visually. And I think you guys did a great job of like how recording me and playing that was like that's how those rooms would look. Dark, lights on one person, feel energy on this person. You know what I'm saying? Like looking at, you're probably a little dipped out, high or whatever, whatever you was taking that night, I'm not gonna say I was or wasn't. This is what it felt like. And that song to me just had that was the weight of the scenarios that I put myself in, which was dangerous, man. Very dangerous. And the song also has that too, to me. And like, yeah, I think, throughout my life, there's been moments in songs that I've written or projects that I've worked on that really resonate to, like a very, just a beautiful cross section of, me in the studio and how I felt at that time. And it's just like hits. It's like, they were like that. It wasn't a hit, but it was just like, to me, it's like really dope. If somebody was like, yo, play one of your favorite sones, that's definitely gonna be top 10 of one of them. You know what I'm saying? So
ours too.
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. Like that favorite songs that I've done. Favorite songs that I've done. There's many songs that I like, but like if somebody was like, yo, Khari, play me your top 10 songs, I'd be like, that's definitely on the list. For sure.
Well, I'd be interested to know because like you said, you gravitated towards certain instruments in the storytelling of that track.
Yeah.
Was there a reason that you felt drawn to the cello or to that flamenco style guitar or even down to the way like you physically made some of the percussion sounds?
Yeah.
Like, was there a reason, like going back in our conversation, like emotionally that you felt drawn to that?
These are all like skills that I have, right? So like this is just what I use to tell my story through music, So there is a physical, when you hear certain sounds like that, like cello is like, oh, it just makes you. So like to tell the story of the song, I needed to use that, like those types of productions. I didn't use like live drums to play. Like, nah, this is like a fucking, this is a drippy, smoky room. This is a fucking, the low end. Woo, like when you walk into like an after hours in LA, that shit is bassy. Like, all right, cool. So it was just really trying to tell a story of the boss man, of the people, of the guy, the specific people that I've seen in these, areas where they was, these are real heavy hitters. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that was it was just interesting to see. It was, and so I just wanted to make something that I would always be able to remember. Like if I'm like 80 years old and I put Boss Man, I'm like, dang, yeah, I remember that back in the day. You know what I'm saying? I remember that. I mean, telling people like, oh man, this is what it was like then. And that's what I really like about music is like the diary of people. And that's why I think it's important to do your own thing because it's like if your diary is making somebody else shit, damn, you don't really have anything to go back to.
Oh, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, that's profound. So essentially what you're saying is that whatever the art is that you're doing, music in our case, that is your actual diary. That is it. That is your diary. That is your creativity diary. And you're so right. Holy smokes, you are right.
Well, the really cool thing about that thought is if it truly is like your diary.
Yeah.
When you think of specifically what a diary is only for you. And it's really not for anybody else. And so I know when you get into the commercial side of things, like you are creating technically for other people and for directors and for artists.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to just creativity in its true essence, creating for yourself and for yourself only as a diary entry is such a profound thought and an approach that you can take towards creativity that I don't really know if any other facet of life really gives you.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I really do believe in staying true to what's going to make it for you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, shit, if you find a diary out there, if you read it, you might see some crazy ass shit in there, which is, when you, that's what I'm saying. When you pass on, maybe that like I have like a death thing, but like when I pass on, I would really like people to be able to listen to my music and be like, oh man, yo, Khari was like, he was really, this is interesting. This is a crazy, crazy thing. And then like having these platforms like podcasts where you're explaining it, where I probably would never been able to explain it at all. You know what I'm saying? Other than somebody interpreting what, was said in the song. And I'm happy for these forums as well. But yeah, like the song should just exist as that moment for me and for the listener to say like, dang, maybe that listener has a boss man in their life or a situation. So yeah, for me, it is for them, but it's from my situation that I'm writing from. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I have to stay true to what I'm writing. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, yeah, I mean that is it.
Yeah, to go full circle.
Yeah.
No, it's so true.
Sure.
So true.
I'll land this plane.
Yeah. No, that was well done, sir. Well done. So yeah, with that, I mean that's a great way to cap this interview. Like,
that's cool.
Man, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. This has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man.
This was cool. It's even cool for me to like dive into, because I am like moving forward like all the time, like. I mean, society kind of makes it that way, but I do just love that push. You know what I'm saying? And I really appreciate you guys' time too. Having me talk this through.
Absolutely.
This is a therapy in and of itself, and I hope to watch other people, in the conversation that you guys have for sure.
Well, with Landon and I, it's more like tripping forward, like trying not to fall on our face.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, where's my flashlight? I can't even see 2 steps in front of me. Like,
Yeah.
No, but it's an interesting journey that anyone who's in the just trying to be creative in any field, like we want to get people from every field. I mean, even as something that you would imagine would not be quote unquote creative, like mathematics or whatever.
Which is very creative.
Oh, I know, right? It is. I've known some mathematicians that are some of the most creative people I've ever met in their own field too. And it's
exactly.
And so just having the wide gambit, but the things that, like the way that your brain works and how it processes things and what comes out has always been fascinating to us, just utterly fascinating. So I'm honored that you wanted to come chat with us again.
Yeah,
so
dude.
Appreciate it.
Dude, I hope this blows up. I hope, as you guys keep going and and pushing forward. I just love seeing people do things, man. It's like, we should not feel like we have like a ceiling on it. So that's cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again,
dude.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us, man.
All right, man. Peace.